Okay. And hello, everyone. Welcome to the December 13th meeting of the Curriculum Subcommittee. From the Board of Ed, we have Chad Hoffner. Welcome. It's our first subcommittee meeting for curriculum, so we're glad to have you. And David Felton should be on momentarily.
Great. And from the Board of Ed side, we have Principal Caddis, we have Principal Falber, we have teachers Dan Pasquarelli and Liz Morris joining us to contribute to some of the topic on the agenda. All right, I'm going to share my screen just to, oh, and there's Principal Ward. Hi, Megan. Just to remind everyone, can you see my screen? Yes.
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 There you go. All right, let me just expand it up a little bit. All right, so the purpose of the ad hoc board curriculum committee is to collaborate between the Board of Education stakeholders and school-based leadership to discuss all aspects of curriculum, instruction, school culture, and climate in the Weston Public Schools. A couple reminders, we want to make sure that we keep our cameras on at all times. Our microphones are muted unless we are contributing to the conversation. Be present, engaged, seek to understand, and keep the discussion and comments on topic according to the agenda. So if we get off topic, please let's call people in versus call people out. So we're going to start today's meeting with two of our teachers that are going to be facilitating a conversation around overnight field trips that they're requesting approval from the Board of Education. As a reminder, the field trip protocol for overnight field trips includes a review or presentation of those overnight field trips to the subcommittee, which is our committee here today. We're going to talk a little bit about the purpose and the rationale for why these field trips are going to enhance our curriculum and the experience for students. And then these two field trips are going to be on the docket for the full Board of Education for final approval, and that will occur on the 19th. So I'm going to first start with Liz Morris. She's going to give us a brief overview on the field trip and the rationale for why she wants to request approval and why it is enhancing our curriculum. So Liz, take it away.
Hi, everybody. So this trip is to the Boston Heritage Festival. It's in Boston. It's an overnight trip. It includes our auditioned ensembles. So that is our jazz band. It includes our chamber singers and members from our symphonic orchestra. In addition to that, we've opened it up to other members in our choir so that we will have our chorale, a group of about 30 students, and some other students in our string orchestra. And the purpose of this particular festival is that it is an adjudication festival. We like to do different overnight field trips every year. Some of them are more performance-based, where like last year, we took the kids to Disney, and it was kind of like everybody in the pool, everybody could participate in that. And we put together a big Disney performance. This one is a little bit different in that the groups have to have a certain amount, our voicing and our instrumentation has to be appropriate because our performances will be juried during this field trip, which is very exciting for us because we love to get feedback from others outside in the real world out there. So we will start with master classes at a local college up there. I don't know exactly where. We haven't gotten those details yet. The plan is also to do a little tour of Boston, a bus tour of Boston while we're there. We will be seeing the Boston Symphony Orchestra. Oh, she told me what we're seeing, and I can't remember off the top of my head. I know there was some Mozart in there and some Sibelius in there, but I don't remember exactly what we were seeing. We will be staying overnight. We will be doing performances. We'll be doing juried performances the next day, seeing a performance of My Fair Lady that is up there in Boston. And then there is a big award ceremony, dinner. The kids, other schools that are involved in the festival will be there. The kids get together. They have awards for, we're not going for competition for this one exactly. This one, we're just going for feedback. But they typically give you awards for other other things. Our students have a tendency to typically get an award for their behavior. Our kids are always very well behaved on these trips. So things like that. They do other things. If there's a featured soloist, they'll have an award for a featured soloist and whatnot. And then they have dinner and dancing, and then we will come home. It is going to be a whirlwind. It's going to be quick, but we really wanted to just keep the costs down for our families. We do travel every year, so we want to kind of be able to keep the cost down for families, so it's not a huge expense. And again, this is not something that anyone is required to go to, but it is certainly a great opportunity to get out there and participate.
That's great. And Liz is one of our curriculum and instruction leaders. And as you know, one of our goals this school year, now that we're in a post-COVID environment, is that we're excited to be able to reinstitute some of these experiences for kids throughout the district, and just look for additional ways to kind of reinvigorate the curriculum and bring back some of those really exciting opportunities that we may have lost because of a lot of the restrictions. So I know Liz is really working with her department to do that this year, and this is one of those events. So great job. And this is in April, you said, right, Liz? One night, right?
It's April 21st to the 22nd.
Great. Exciting. Any questions?
Agenda for one day. So you guys are really going to be busy.
I was very specific with the tour company. I was like, I want these things, and I want it kind of in this order. We got almost exactly what I wanted. I wanted something on Friday night instead of during the day on Friday, but we weren't able to get that. So we're just moving some things around. But yes, jam-packed.
Terrific. And about how many students are going to go on this trip? And is it 9 through 12?
9 through 12. And it is about 75 students right now.
Awesome.
Wow.
Excellent. I'd love to hear afterwards if we could get a little bit of an update, maybe at the big Board of Ed meeting, just a little hint of how everything went, what the highlight was, because this sounds fantastic.
Yes.
Mm.
Happy to do that, and happy to take some video also and share that with you.
Terrific. Thank you.
All right, great. I think David Feldman's on the call too. Hi, David. So our, see there?
I'm here. I was just going to say hello.
I know, that's why I'm sorry I paused. I wasn't sure if you were able to get to the unmute button fast enough. Okay, so our second, thank you, Liz. I know Liz has some auditions, right? So we wanted to make sure that we put her first, and you're welcome to stay. I know you have a couple minutes, but I know you've got a busy day. So thanks for coming.
While I'm here, I'll invite you all to our concert at the high school on Thursday night. We have our choirs and our orchestra concert this Thursday night at 7 o'clock in the auditorium. So if anybody's available, you want to come on by and listen to some really great music, that would be really great. And yes, we're heading off to auditions right now. So
Thanks, Liz.
Okay.
Enjoy. Good luck.
Thanks.
All right. And so next we have Dan Passarelli. He's from the high school as well. He's going to be presenting the Europe trip that's also going to be happening in April, hopefully with approval from the board. And just as a reminder, part of the board packet, the agenda, it included the full field trip documentation that the teachers and the administrators review prior to the presentation to the subcommittee here and then the full board. Full disclosure, we as a district are revising some of the workflow and the documentation that has been in existence over the past few years, just to try to synthesize and reorganize some of that workflow so that everyone's on the same page. And we hope to begin some of that process in January. So some of the documentation, if you look at those overnight field trips, may be a little inconsistent. So we recognize that as well. And so moving forward in the new year, we do hope to synthesize some of those documents and clean it up. So it will look a little bit more organized moving forward. Okay. So Dan, would you like to give us an overview of the trip and some more details?
Certainly. Hi. Thanks for having me, everybody. We are taking a trip, proposing to take a trip to Europe during April vacation. And this particular tour through the company ACIS out of Boston that we've utilized before. In 2018, I took 13 students to England, France, Germany, and Austria on a World War II themed trip where we Saw the town of Portsmouth in England where they prepped the Normandy invasion. We took a ferry ride across the English Channel and landed in Caen, where the Allied forces landed during World War II. It was to give you a snapshot of what that trip was like, a really, really great experience. And, during COVID and during some other circumstances, obviously we weren't able to organize trips, which after 2018 was really my intent, to make different trips to different places around the world, sort of part of the school fabric and school culture, which got a little bit interrupted. But much like Tina was saying before, now that a lot of the restrictions are lifted and things are getting back to normal, we wanted to kind of get it going again. So this particular trip is called, through ACIS, the Amadeus, which is also 3 countries, which goes to Venice to start in Italy. And then from Venice, we drive up through Austria to Salzburg and Vienna. And then from there, we go to Prague in the Czech Republic. The great thing about this trip offered to sophomores through seniors is that it's really reflective of many of the curriculum elements that we teach in the social studies department. For example, Venice, they'll be able to see the architecture of the Renaissance and the artwork of that time period that they study in 9th grade world studies. As we go through Austria, for those of us, along on the trip that are fans of music, we will be going to the hometown of Mozart in Salzburg and seeing all the amazing elements of that town, both cultural and historical. And then in Vienna, just as it pertains, one of the things that pertains to the curriculum directly is we'll go to the Schönbrunn Palace, which is basically like the Versailles of the Habsburg family that ruled Austria for centuries, which is something that we teach. And then as we go to Prague in the Czech Republic, Prague is one of the last remaining medieval cities of Europe, but it also has a lot of the modern elements of the history that we teach in modern world studies, including things like the Prague Spring, which was the uprising against the Soviet control and influence in 1968. We're going to be where Prague Spring actually happened and getting a tour of what took place there when they tried to break free from Soviet influence during that time. So it's a really great trip. It's a really good company that distinguishes itself from the other tour companies in terms of the accommodations they provide, the experiences that they lead us to. It's a really, really great trip, and the kids are excited about the prospect of being able to go.
Sounds amazing. Any questions for Dan?
No questions. It sounds fantastic. I mean, our mission in the Weston schools is to raise global citizens, and this is one of the best ways to be able to do this, to really go and stretch the horizon. So it sounds like a wonderful opportunity. Thank you for putting so much energy into it. And again, I wonder if we can talk again, Tina, about how to get a little highlight in the big BOE meetings, because we can highlight to the community some of these great things after they happen, and explain some of the highlights. It would really foster the program.
I think
Sorry, Tina, to that point, Bernadette, there will be a Instagram account that will be established in the name of the trip. And so I'll be sure to share that with board members. So you won't have to wait until after the trip. You'll be able to see while we're on the trip what's actually going on. So it'll be really great.
Thank you. I'm going to live vicariously through you guys. Thank you.
Yeah, I do think, though, the story that can go behind some of the student experiences of these field trips is definitely something that we should celebrate and allow the students to present, because, Instagram is wonderful. There's always some text messaging on those pictures and the reels, but nothing replaces some actual real stories from the kids that you wouldn't actually feel and be able to engage in through a picture, in my opinion. So I think we can talk about that and talk with Dan and Liz to see, what they learned, what some of their highlights were of these trips as well. Because as you know, Dan and Liz, they put so much time and energy on these trips around behind the scenes to plan and coordinate. I give so much credit to all of our teachers and our administrators to engage in some of these field trips to really make them relevant and engaging for our kids. And there's so much legwork behind them to celebrate them and celebrate what they've learned from these trips is definitely something that we would like to be able to do. So we could talk about it moving forward. I think that's a great idea, Bernie. Megan, did you want to add anything about either of these two at all? I know that you're on too.
Nope. Thanks to Liz and Dan. As you said, Tina, it's a lot of work and they're great experiences for kids. So we're glad we can get back at it.
Absolutely. So they will go in front of the full board on the 19th. They're already actually on the agenda with the same accompanying documents that you received today. And then final approval will happen with the full board. Okay. So Dan, I mentioned you're just like Liz. I know you guys are busy, so you're welcome to stay or go. But thank you for your time and coming on to kind of give some more context and details around the trip. David, did you have a question?
Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay.
Take care, y'all.
Yep. Bye. You're good, Dave? I just wanted to make sure. Okay. All right, moving on. So we're going to move into some of the other pieces of the agenda. Before I get into the curriculum and instruction updates, I just wanted to provide you with some background on a survey that Megan and her faculty will be, or her students will be engaging in sometime between January through March. This is actually wrong on the agenda. The Connecticut, excuse me, the U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention, they are working in tandem with the National Tobacco Survey, a National Youth Tobacco Survey. It's sponsored in coordination with the CDC. And what they do is, it was established in 1999, and it provides important information about students' knowledge of and attitudes towards tobacco, their exposure to secondhand smoke, and their exposure to influences that promote or discourage tobacco use. So every year, certain schools are selected to participate in this survey to contribute to the data collection and also provide the school with some background information relative to tobacco use of the students in their school. What I found particularly interesting about this survey, though, is it talks specifically about e-cigarettes. And as we know, e-cigarettes is kind of the domain around vaping and different tools that and additional tobacco use that may just not be limited to cigarettes, right? So when we say tobacco, sometimes that's the first thing in my mind because I don't do that. And so that was the first thing that came to my mind, but it's much broader than that, especially now since a lot of the research shows that the most commonly used tobacco product among youth in the US since 2014 is the use of e-cigarettes and e-tobacco. So it would provide us some with additional information that some of the other data that we use to collect surveys around student use may help us and understand how to provide more preventative programs for our students at the high school level. So Megan has agreed to gather this data. And as part of participating in the survey, schools also receive, it's an online survey. It takes about 20 minutes. We will work with somebody at the school level, which is probably Megan and or her designee, to distribute the survey. We'll communicate the information to parents prior to delivering that survey. We will also be able to participate in a webinar regarding the data that is collected from the survey. And there's also resources provided by the National Youth Tobacco organization in conjunction with the CDC around preventative curriculum and resources that schools can use. And we also, as an additional kind of incentive to the CDC and the National Youth Tobacco program director, they also provide a monetary award for those schools that participate, and we can use it for curriculum resources or programming resources to support the school as well. So that was a couple months ago, and we are working with Megan and her team to effectively implement that survey on a very, non-threatening way. So that, I'm not exactly sure when that will happen, Megan. I know that there's been a lot of things happening and we've got a lot of things to schedule and coordinate, but I wanted to make sure that everybody was aware that that will be a survey coming down the pike between January and March. It will
not happen in January.
It will not happen in January. That I know.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify, I don't believe that we get that data on students, so I don't want to get anyone's hopes up that this data is typically collected and you can view the data at the state and national level, but we are not getting specific data about our Weston High School students. So I just wanted to clarify that. This is really a community, this is one of those community services and the community good, I think, that I expressed at one of our board meetings, right? Like the social contract piece about all this, that, you know, the Centers for Disease Control asks schools to do this, and we willingly participate to provide resources and data.
That's true. Yes. Thanks, Megan. Participating schools will receive an invitation to a webinar discussing the results, but it is aggregate results, as you said, not disaggregated out by school. And that will happen in 2023 at some point. Okay. Any questions on that survey that will come when we get more details, and when we have a schedule? I will gladly kind of circle back on that topic and let you know when that's happening.
I just have a couple of questions. So it seems like surveys over time, in my opinion, have moved from gathering information into areas that are a lot more personally identifiable and more social emotional. So will there be an opportunity for either the board or parents to see the survey before it's administered? Will kids have the opportunity to opt out or opt in? So is it, is it default opt in or is it default opt out? And because I mean, I understand what you're saying. It's, it's one of those things that help the community, which is great. You get the results in the aggregate, but I think because I feel like surveys I have seen over the recent years have moved into areas that are not necessarily directly related. They call it the demographics piece. So will there be an opportunity, again, for either the board, the committee, the committee, the board, or parents to see the survey ahead of time? Is it an opt-in or is it an opt-out?
So it is a sample of classes. Parent permission needs to be collected prior to the students completing the survey. So as a parent, there's always an opt-out, right? I mean, I think we need to be able to make those decisions ourselves. And there is a permission packet and materials packet that will be distributed to parents. Surveys typically are not allowed to be able to be reviewed at the individual question level. However, I have no problem asking the program director if that's a possibility. That I don't know. It doesn't actually clearly define that. Typically, when we ask for specific survey questions that will be on it, it does potentially sway the data, and they don't typically provide that to schools. However, maybe there's some sample-like questions that we may be able to review prior to, and that's something that we have received, some like released items or items that have been used in the past that maybe, are outdated or old, but those are the types of questions that they will see.
Okay, yeah, and the reason I bring that up is because sometimes you can make inferences, but unless you know what the questions were, especially when it comes to demographics and who primarily took the survey, right? So if you have a large cohort of a certain demographic taking the survey, you may have skewed results. And so that's really the reason I asked more about the demographic piece, is to understand if there are demographic related questions, what are those questions? And then will there be an opportunity, even in the aggregate, to understand what demographic took the survey? Was it, widely administered and widely taken by lots of different demographics, or was there a particular demographic that seemed to be especially interested in taking it? So that's the basis of the demographic question. Yeah,
and it's a national survey. So go ahead, Megan.
If you go on the, and I can send you the link, I'm just on the CDC website. There is the 2021 questionnaire, National Youth Tobacco Survey 2021 questionnaire.
Could you put it in the chat, Megan? Do you mind?
That's a great idea.
Just so that we have it. Yeah.
It's question by question. So
perfect.
Where are you taking this?
Yeah, it doesn't look like they gave one this past year, so that must be. And just to clarify too, these are random samples of schools that were asked to participate in the survey, and they are students in grades 6 through 12 that were asked to participate on a national level in the survey, just to give you an idea as well.
Right, this is helpful, and maybe depending on, I'm
Mhm.
always about transparency,
Mhm.
is when a message is sent out or it's made known that the survey is going to be taken, perhaps include a link to the 2021 survey. Because it
Yeah.
stands to reason the question's going to be similar and the format's going to be similar. And that
Yeah.
would, right?
We're gonna see, I'll have to see what the parent permission materials look like. And if we need to add an additional link, which we can include Megan's link here, in addition to what we send out, I think that, like, to your point, David, that's very helpful.
I didn't know Pall Mall was even still a cigarette.
I'm just copying the link and putting it in my document so I don't forget.
I do like the angle of what we're looking at as, really a community service piece. And I'm wondering if we can make sure that we highlight that as we work with the students so we don't lose that teachable moment. I wonder if in the presentation of the survey, if there's any space to be able to say, you're contributing to this great body of research so they can appreciate what they're contributing to. And then I didn't know if you had any thoughts after the webinar when the state level and national level data comes back, if that's going to be then presented to the students in some kind of capacity.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I've never participated in a survey like this, so I'm not exactly sure what that presentation will look like from on their end. But I know Megan and her team will probably be there because they would like to at least see what it also looks like, and then from there we can determine whether or not we are even able to repeat some of that presentation with students. I don't know the format, so I don't know if that's even an option.
Yeah, I would also I would want to know more about the data that we get,
Right.
what it looks like at the state level, what it looks like at the national level. I think that kind of universally we acknowledge that e-cigarettes and those vape products are on the rise. And then it's just a matter of how far it pushes down in terms of the age at which students are starting and how long they're continuing and all that. I also, once we get the data, I think I would also want to look to local organizations, whether it's ADAP or Positive Directions, and look at how they can support us in having more well-rounded conversations about this and really look to the experts. I am not an expert in drug, alcohol, and tobacco use, so I would really want to look at our community resources and those that we've partnership before to see how we would use and then provide this information to students.
Yeah, and I think that's a perfect segue into, I think, why there's an award attached to some of the participatory pieces of this, that, if we have an option to bring in ADAP or some of the other programs to present some information to kids to make them more aware and what this impact does to their body and their well-being, to make them more aware of the choices that they have, I think that could also be something that we look into and using that award from, that incentive. Giving it back to the kids in some way to use it for educational purposes, I think, is always a benefit, right? So we'll see.
Yeah, that sounds good. The twofold benefit: one, taking the information we learned to better inform our programming around drug and alcohol use, tobacco use in this case, but also for the students to realize that survey data does matter and we're doing this for a purpose, and this is the end product of that time that you've put into it.
For sure.
And what was the age range for this?
Grades 6 through 12. Yeah.
Yeah, and I agree 100%. Maybe having a conversation ahead of time with students about how this data is used, because as I shared with Dan last year, I got feedback that some of the 8th graders, when they took the ADAP or whatever that survey was, didn't take it seriously. And it's probably because they didn't know that the outcome is not a punitive outcome. It's actually a educational, teachable outcome. So I think, especially at the lower grade, certainly the 6 to 8, maybe have that conversation with them that this is not, the results of the survey will not be used in a punitive way. It's to really understand what's going out there and giving you the ability to anonymously provide feedback.
Yeah. Yeah, point well taken. And I think part of that information we can use in that parent materials too, to kind of relay it to kids. And Megan and her team we can work with her team to do that for sure. Thank you. Okay, let's move on. The next section on the agenda, which I have to go to this screen, is updates around curriculum and instruction. So we've got a lot to kind of talk about and provide you with some updates on. So I'm going to start with literacy, and I'm happy that we have Laura and Patty on the call as well. So thank you guys for both coming. As you know, we have a district literacy committee. It is comprised of teachers, reading consultants, administrators in special education, as well as principals, assistant principals, and our curriculum and instruction leaders, many of whom have reading consultant backgrounds, many of whom have been in this field for many years and have a lot of experience. And so since I initiated this work in September, we have come a long way in a very short period of time. Last meeting, I talked about the team, members of the team participating in a full day and a half of review around the 6 different, actually now 7 different programs that the state of Connecticut released based on the components of the science of reading. We then narrowed down, the members of the team narrowed down the 7 programs to 2. We last week, was it last week? The days are blending. I'm sorry. Was it last week or the week before? It was. Okay. So last week we had the top 2, which was the members that went to the screening for all of the programs. There was an overwhelming response for these 2 programs to come in to do a deep dive with the actual representatives. So we took a full day with the entire district literacy committee, which was it's a K-12 committee, and 2 of the programs came in and spent a half day with the entire committee going through intensely the different grade level components, the different resources, the assessments, the structure of the components in the curriculum that they offer. And at the end of the full day of presentation from the representatives, each member of the district literacy committee received a document. And it was an evaluation document based on the science of reading and the different components of the 2 programs. They had to evaluate it, and I'm trying to bring it up. They had to evaluate it based on the presentation, and they had to submit it to me for data collection. So after that, we reviewed and kind of gathered all the data together, and we have one here's the note catcher. Let's see. Can you see it? No, because I have to stop sharing. Share this tab instead. Can you see it now? Yes. Okay. So the note catcher included a variety of different instructional components as well as components of the science of reading. And
can you zoom in again like you had on the previous slide? It's pretty,
yes, sir.
pretty small, the text.
How's that?
That's much better. Thanks.
Okay. So we have different look-fors when the 2 presenters were with the team around different aspects of evidence-based, scientifically research-based, and the science of reading aspects of the different programs. We looked at writing, components of writing. We looked at opportunities for choice in the curriculum. We looked at opportunities for transfer of learning. We looked at different aspects that provide small group instruction. We looked at instructional strategies. We looked at opportunities for professional learning with the programs. We looked at supports for students with disabilities and social emotional learning. We looked at for different opportunities for student discourse and being culturally responsive, specifically because we know we value the Spanish program that we have at such an early grade, at such an early age, and we wanted to be able to look for some resources to also provide correlation between what we do in the Spanish program as well as in the reading program. We also wanted to see the different high quality aspects of phonemic awareness and phonics instruction that the programs offer. We wanted to make sure that there was a very large range of rigor, right, when it comes to text complexity and opportunities for kids at all levels, at all ranges. So each teacher in the district literacy committee evaluated the 2 programs based on a scale of 1 to 5 in these different areas. I gathered all of that data and then I summarized it, and it was by far the program that was approved based on the district literacy committee was the American Reading Company. I'm confident at this point that of the 7 programs that are out there, the American Reading Company does provide a lot of what we're looking for and what meets our needs in Weston to really synthesize some of the great work that we've already done in the district and some of the programs that we currently have in the district as well. As you know, we have Foundations and we have Hegarty in the curriculum in Weston as well, which is a blessing because we know that those are 2 evidence-based resources that we want to be able to maintain as part of our core for K through 3. So at this point in time, we know we have more work to do, but we feel confident that if we were to submit one program that we want to move forward with around working to really audit our current resources that we have in literacy, and also figure out how to revise curriculum and how to make it work for Weston, that if we had to pick today, right, we're not you know, kind of held in handcuffs to this one program, but on the 16th, we are required by the state to submit of those 7, which one would we choose if we had to right now. So as of today, which is the 13th, we're 3 days early, we are going to submit the American Reading Company as the program that we would use if we could, if we had the funds and we are able to adopt it moving forward. The District Literacy Committee, just so we're all aware, has a lot more work to do in this area. But we couldn't move forward with our work unless we had a tool, a resource to actually use and dissect even further. There are still a lot of questions, even in my own learning around the science of reading and building my own expertise around what good reading instruction looks like for all students. There are still many questions that I have around the curriculum and the program to ensure that there is truly high quality phonological awareness and phonemic awareness that are built in and ingrained into Tier 1 for all kids. I'm confident though, like I said, we have Foundations and we have Hegarty. Those are 2 core programs, they're not core programs, excuse me, 2 supplemental programs that we are going to maintain moving forward, regardless of the transition to a new curriculum. We are always learning and we're asking lots of questions. I'm in contact with the state because they have still yet to release the rubrics that they have used to evaluate these core programs. I don't think that and you know, some of the top researchers in reading would agree, not one program is going to meet all of our needs. Okay. And so I'm confident though that between the core, which is American Reading Company right now, in conjunction with Foundations and Hegarty, it will meet our needs. The next piece of this is to audit a little bit more further what we currently have in the district relative to resources, instructional resources, assessments, even instructional practices, so that it can support professional development for our teachers to ensure that we are prepared for next year. Before I open it to questions, I just want to give you one more piece of information that's a change from the last time we spoke. Lisa and I are committed to not requesting a waiver. So we're not requesting a waiver from the state, but I will be asking for an extension. So the extension means that I am asking that I have additional time to implement the state guidelines to fully adopt K through 3, which means that we will be proposing one of the 7 core programs, which is American Reading Company, but I cannot, in good conscience, be expected to implement with good conscience to implement K through 3 at one time. So my request to extend the time frame that we have is to extend the time frame for implementation. So my request will be that next year we focus on K2, and in the following year, this is what I'm asking the extension from the state for, The following year will be to adopt grade 3 and beyond, because I would like to see if we can expand it to 4th and 5th grade as well, so that there is a full K-5 continuum. Laura and Patty, did I miss anything? The only other layer of professional development while we're on this, right? Professional development is so important whenever you're transitioning to a new core program. I don't care what content it is, right? There's so many layers of this transition and adoption. And I've done this so many different times in a lot of different content areas. And fortunately in Weston, I know that we're a smaller district. However, it still requires time. And time is never on our side, no matter what we do, right? And so allowing for that extension gives us a little bit of a buffer. I'm happy with that. And it will also allow us to really look at the professional development opportunities that the different programs provide to us. And I will say, I am most comfortable with American Reading Company's professional development model as well. Because it's more job embedded professional development. It's more of a coaching model. It's not a canned professional development. I do not typically I'm not drawn into the companies or the programs that are canned professional development. I like to customize professional development. I want to tell you what I need, and I want you to provide a customized plan for the teachers in the district and the administrators in the district. So they provide that, and it's on-site training. So with that being said, I feel confident that K2 for the first year, we can do that. We have a schedule that can support that. And because it's job embedded, it will allow us more flexibility to really roll up our sleeves and help our teachers implement with more integrity and fidelity of the program. We'll learn from our mistakes. We'll learn what we're doing well. What are some areas that we can shift to? But it will really allow us to focus with Laura and her team and at the school level for year 1. And then year 2, we can, maintain what we do at Hess, but then we can start transitioning and focusing with Patty's group at 3-5. One other layer, I know people want to ask, I just want to make sure I don't forget all the pieces because I know it's being recorded. One other layer is that a large number of our teachers on the district literacy committee, we have a total of 7 now who have also received, they participated in Orton Gillingham training. It's a comprehensive training as well as phonemic awareness training, as well as a practicum that they have to complete as part of the training, and then they receive a certificate. So we have 7 of our teachers that are receiving this professional development. They've completed all 7 days of the intensive training. They have gotten nothing but such great feedback and appreciation from the teachers to engage in this work. And they're bringing it back to their teachers at their schools, and we will be able to utilize this training and what they've learned as we start transitioning with our new core program. Okay, now I will open it for questions. I promise I won't interject.
I have a clarification question or a contextual question. So I went to the CES legislative breakfast last Friday, and this came up. So just for my own context and maybe for the other board members, this is in reference to Hartford mandating this new reading program, right? And currently Weston has a waiver with Hartford. It was not for this program, but they have a waiver for it. Right. Okay. So that's where this is coming from as far as the new mandate from Hartford. We have a new reading program. So what I'm not clear about is, you said we're not going to ask for a waiver, but we're going to implement. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great question. So the state of Connecticut a year ago started doing some research on the science of reading and the tools that we have on the market and the curricula that certain districts are using in their districts because our achievement scores in reading have been flat or declining. Okay. And so when we looked a little deeper at the current curricula that we're using, many of which are not aligned to the science of reading with systematic explicit instruction at the K-3 level. We've seen some of that data in our own district. We've been flat, and specifically with students with disabilities, we're not seeing the achievement that we want to see in reading. We are unpacking some of what that means around systematic and explicit instruction for reading. And prior to me coming here, Weston adopted Foundations and Hegarty, which does provide more explicit systematic instruction, okay? Coupled with that, though, those are not core reading programs. They're supplemental to the core. So part of the year's work of the state was to create a reading consultancy group to evaluate all the different programs that are available to districts. You can find them on Ed Reports. And as a result, the state adopted new regulations and requirements of all districts in the state of Connecticut to adopt one of the 7 reading programs on a list. Okay. The state of Connecticut is kind of late in this reading regulations and adoption. There's many states across the country that have already adopted some of these regulations. The state of Connecticut is a little bit behind on that. So as a result, the requirement is that every district in the state of Connecticut be using one of these 7 core programs by 2023, July of 2023. Okay. This districts can do one of 2 things. Well, 3, let's say 3 things. You can say, yes, I'm going to adopt one of these programs and I'm starting July 1, 2023. Check. Or you can say, I need more time to research. I need more time to transition and adopt one of the 7. So I need an extension. I'm gonna pick one of these 7, but I need more time. So because in Weston, I'm going to say that we cannot implement in good conscience all 4 grade levels in one shot in 1 year, nor can we monetarily fiscally responsibly implement it on 4 grade levels. I'm going to ask for a time extension. Okay. Or 3 is you ask for a waiver. A waiver means I refuse to adopt one of these. I'm going to show you why I'm refusing it, and I have to provide evidence. And there's a series of pieces that you have to provide to the state, and you have to provide a plan to the state, and the state may approve your waiver to not adopt one of the 7 programs. I can tell you that knowing the components of the waiver, I would highly recommend that we do not ask for a waiver, because there are areas of that waiver that we cannot provide to the district as part of our plan, such as 3 years of data with specific assessments that are on a state list in order to be approved for a waiver. So we're asking for a time extension, and that's why we're doing the research to adopt a new core program. And I'm asking for a time extension from the state so we can implement within all good consciousness and support for our teachers, and also be fiscally responsible so that we don't have to spend the full amount of money in 1 year. Does that clarify the question?
Very much so. Can you because that, yeah, because the part of the waiver came up during the legislature.
I'm sure it did.
Yeah, and one of the senators in the room was none too happy with any of us who suggested Hartford shouldn't be making decisions in our towns.
Mm-hmm.
But
Hartford didn't, though. I just want to clarify. Hartford did not. It was not an isolated conversation. It was a long-term research project with a variety of different representatives. You can see who was on the reading team, one of whom was from Wilton. So I don't want you to think that there wasn't a diverse conversation. I think in Weston, we know that there's different demographics and achievement in different subgroups for sure. And I know that in Weston, be totally transparent. We know we are not meeting the needs of all learners when it comes to reading, and we can do better. We're good, but we can do better. And I know we've got committed teachers, committed administrators. We've got very smart people in the group. I'm very fortunate that I rely on all of them to dissect the resources that we have and ask really poignant questions of these representatives, and we're going to make the right decisions for our kids here. And I think the resources that can provide from American Reading Company, as well as what we currently have in place, we're going to have an even better curriculum and experience for kids in reading. I truly believe that.
Then my last question, I'll turn it over to others. Will we have an opportunity to look at where we were before we implemented this program and where we are when we are done? Because again, part of the conversation that occurred in this room is that we do well. There's always room to do better, but we do well as a district with our readers.
Yeah.
And so the concern that some of us had was that this program isn't challenging enough. This program is not designed for kids that otherwise are doing fine. And so what I'm asking is, which is kind of a typical Bernie type of ask, so I'm going to take a lead from Bernie. Will we have something after implementation that we can compare? Here's how we were doing with the program that we ran as the district versus how our results are for our students that this new program is supposed to address, right? We should expect that all of our students who are doing well will continue to do well, and the students who need help are doing better. So will we have some method by which we can look back and...
Yeah, I'm not a big believer of comparing because it's apples to oranges. I know that I think every step of the way we're going to be looking at achievement overall, and the current where we are right now relative to our universal screeners and our standardized assessments. Part of the adoption is that we have an assessment tool that actually evaluates all the different pieces of reading based on the science of reading. That is, we use Dibbles 8 right now. We use pieces of it, but next year we are going to be adopting the newest version and the platform that is accompanying the Dibbles 8 assessment that is based on this, based on the state guidelines. So I think comparing, the same group of students based on that assessment over time is what we should be doing and what we will be doing. But comparing it to where we were before is it's counterproductive, in my opinion. And just to be fully transparent, with any implementation, there is an implementation dip. Teachers are learning new ways of teaching. They're using new resources. They're trying to blend things together, and they will. It's just a matter of giving some flexibility and leeway of the learning and the transition of our staff as well. And we're already seeing some really great achievement with Foundations and Hegarty and the students that are using those tools. So the goal is to maintain at least for next year so that we can grow even more from where we currently stand.
I'll jump in next with some questions if you're done, David, if that's okay. Unless, Bernie, did you have something you wanted to ask? I saw you begin to say something.
No, you go first. Go ahead.
All right. So, Tina, this is, I know that to your point about this not just being a Connecticut thing, I know there's been a national conversation about some of like the 3 queuing strategies and sort of like guessing based on pictures and initial letter or capital letter and even like context, that a lot of that in terms of the national conversation about literacy has been certainly, if not totally discredited, challenged for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So the question would be, I'm guessing based on the kind of words you use of science, of reading and things like that, that of these 7 curricula, the committee feels that this certainly addresses that particular set of challenges the best of these 7. Is that accurate?
It is. So I too listened to the podcast by Sold a Story,
Yeah.
And it was amazing. And I encourage anyone to look it up, Sold a Story. I actually attended with Lisa I don't want to say it was an open mic, but it wasn't like a webinar or a training. It was an in-person conversation with I forget her name. I wish do you remember her name, Chad? Sold a Story, the woman who did the podcast. Oh my gosh.
I could Google it, but I can't.
Yeah.
Think right now.
And Margie Gillis. And it was about all about reading. It went through the science of reading and the research, and talked about the different strategies that some of our current resources are promoting and are actually promoting bad reading strategies. And so that's where, even though we knew about the science of reading, I think some districts were sold on this idea or this story that this was the best way to teach reading. And although for most kids it worked fine, it was not meeting the demands or needs for all students because it wasn't provided in a structured, explicit model. Like you said, that 3 queuing system is a strategy around guessing and then looking for the first letter and seeing what may fit in a word, is actually developing poor reading strategies for kids. And that's what the science of reading contradicts, right? That's not aligned to the science of reading, but many districts were sold on this story that that's the right way to teach reading. And that's the shift, right? That's the shift. And that's why the state guidelines are here. As far as the curricula that are out there, I'm happy that the one that the district committee actually chose is the most closely aligned to the science of reading. There are components of it that are not as rigorous or intense or evidence-based that we want to see. And so that's why I'm happy that we have Foundations Integrity, because that's more of an explicit and systematic approach to some of the components of science of reading.
Understood. So
Yeah.
Then my questions next will go to the decision about second and third grade, because so I guess one question first would be, is the waiver time driven by funding or uptake by faculty, or both, or more than that?
The waiver is completely not the waiver. Are you asking about the waiver or the extension?
No, my point is, like, so you're saying, like, we have the bandwidth to do K through 2 now. Let's delay third for 1 year, essentially, right?
3-5 for 1 year.
Rolling it out at beginning at grade 3 till a year from now.
Yeah, it's a combination of things. One is funding. That's not the primary reason, because I wasn't going down that road originally. Laura and Patty know, I was rolling up my sleeves and I was all in. But the more I unpacked some of the pieces, the more I understood where our teachers were relative to the implementation of some of these components, the more I understood the time that we need to really unpack these pieces and implement it well. I couldn't in good conscience say, we can't do it all great in one shot. We've got some pieces that we know we need to do better in 3-5 while we transition K2. And so it's more about professional development and support for me at this point with teachers, not the money. And I think that we need to, and I'm willing to die in a sword with the state if they're going to push back and say, no, you can't get the extra time. At this point, I don't care. We're just taking the extra time. I will fill out the paperwork. I don't care it's recording right now. I will, do whatever they want me to do to fill out the paperwork. But regardless, next year's goal is to be for K2, and then the following year will be for 3-5. We cannot do it all well in one shot.
Yeah, understood.
It's not good for kids and it's not good for teachers.
So then this is a sort of a suggestion that gravitates into a question, which would be, because I've actually heard parents at different parts. I was in Le Chat this weekend, people are talking about this sort of like phonological awareness. It's gaining some sort of currency within the community and in literacy preparedness. So the suggestion would be, I think, to the point of like some other committees we may want to think about, depending on what decisions are made, how we communicate this to the parent body, because the challenge, of course, it will look like K2 is getting something that 3 to 5 isn't currently. So I guess that it's sort of as a prompt of like, I guess we should think about how to communicate this to the parent community.
Yeah, and Laura and Patty Morrow and our assistant director of special ed, we're going to now start the conversation, right? Timing is everything. Yeah. We literally just completed this work with the district literacy committee. I'm literally just communicating this to you all and in the public right now. We know there's grumblings with the staff. We're going to start these conversations with the staff on our process and how we picked it. They knew there was a district literacy committee. They all got to volunteer on it if they wanted to. But we need to now provide some more information around where we are relative to the process and where we're going next.
Sure.
And I literally have not even submitted the request for the time extension with the state. So if anyone on the state is listening, this is what's coming down the pike to them. And to your point, 3 through 5. So when you get to third grade does follow the requirements and the guidelines. The curriculum for American Reading Company actually goes K through 12. If you're really looking at a continuum, it actually transcends and looks at reading and reading instruction all the way to high school. I am a big believer of looking at curriculum that supports a K-12 continuum. And so, but the state requires specific components for reading in K-3. What districts do beyond that is our own jurisdiction. So 3rd through 5th will be adopted. So there's that level of continuity, and there's also professional development for all staff at one time. 3rd grade is going to continue with foundations so that they're still closing the gap in some of the pieces of science of reading. Foundations will remain in place when we adopt American Reading Company in the following year. And there are some additional pieces of scheduling that we want to make sure that we have in place when we transition to the following year for a new curriculum.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's all my questions.
Great. All right. So I know we're at 4:02. Bernie, do you have questions on reading as well?
Just one really quick
Go ahead.
question. Just if you take the teachers or educators in general that were on the committee specifically that wear a special education hat or work with students with disabilities around reading, did they also come up with Reading Company as their number one choice?
Yeah. Yes. It was a very clear differential between 3 like 30-point differential if I look on a 100-point scale. So all of them had the American Reading Company that was clearly of a higher quality based on those components that we evaluated them on versus any other one that was on the list. And they looked at all of them, and then the 2 that came in to do a more of a deep dive with the group, it was very clear by even the end of the meeting when we debriefed as a group that if we had to put one on a list, that would be the one that we need to go with.
And I was looking quickly at your look fors, and you had a lot of talk about the equity piece, which I think is fabulous. Do you feel like there's enough space in there to really differentiate the instruction? So to kind of what David was getting at before, can we reach the gifted readers in a slightly different way than the struggling readers and the readers in the middle?
That's what also really what the team loved about the American Reading Company. The texts were very authentic. There was a very large range of complex texts so that students of high interest, texts of high interest, and of various reading levels, so that teachers had their libraries were plentiful and were meeting the needs of all learners at all levels.
Okay, and just the taking the extra time for the extension sounds good, because the efficacy of our program is going to be completely tied to the fidelity of our implementation. So if we don't roll it out well, we are going to be backpedaling for some time. So to more to put it, so yeah, so totally makes sense.
Absolutely, yeah, I agree, and that's why I couldn't sleep for a long time. Like, I don't know what to do. What is the right way to do this? Like, and so I just at the point where like, if we're going to do this right, we have to make sure we keep our students and teachers in mind, and our administrators, because they're leading the charge here too. And doing it all in one shot is just not smart and good conscience. So that's where we stand. I will continuously update you, and also you'll start hearing more conversations around, what is this resource and our adoption implementation process moving forward. So Laura and Patty will be helping me with that, as well as Patty Morrow, who is our Assistant Director of Special Education, Tracy Edwards. We're doing all this work is in partnership with each other, because we support all of our kids in the district. So moving on to the next piece on the agenda, which is the tri-state update. Just some feedback on that. We met as a tri-state committee, a district tri-state committee. And as you know, I can't get my agenda up here. I lost it. Hang on, so sorry. We have finalized our essential questions and alignment to the indicators. And this week, actually tomorrow, I will be moving around to all of the schools to begin to communicate with WIS, the high school, and eventually, WIS and the high school, because and the middle school math teachers will be joining us as well. So I will be presenting the essential questions and the indicators that we will be engaging in with the Tri-State Consortium Committee. Just to give you some background, Tri-State is a consortium of many different school districts in our area in New York and Connecticut, who their mission is to support districts evaluate some of their systems and structures, curriculum, instruction, and assessment. We present them with some essential questions and big ideas that we want a team of Tri-State members to come in and give us feedback on. And so their visit to us, very similar to NEASC, if you're familiar with the accreditation process at the high school, but Tri-State is more of a district-wide evaluation and feedback program and consortium. So on tomorrow, we will be talking with the staff, and then in March, the Tri-State Committee will come in and actually interview staff member, interview parents, interview members of the board, interview administrators and students, based on these essential questions that we have asked them to engage in the visit. The visit lasts about 2.5 days, and we host them, and they're with us in our schools for those 2.5 days. And so it's important that we communicate with our staff who they are, what it is, and why they're here. And so from now until March, our teachers and our administrators are gathering evidence to provide to the Tri-State Committee, so they can actually dive into some of what we do, the inner workings of Weston, based on those essential questions. They're going to ask a lot of questions and interview our parents and our students and our teachers. They're going to go visit classrooms, and then they're going to provide us feedback based on those essential questions, so that we can use that information to make adjustments moving forward around our program. Specifically, this Tri-State visit is focused on math. We're looking at our transition grades in 5 through 9, and we're looking at students with disabilities in 5 through 9 as well, and what their experience is like in the math classroom. So more to come on that, but we've gotten to the next stage of planning the Tri-State visit, which is the hardest part, which is to identify those essential questions. What are we asking them? What are they looking at? What is the evidence that we're going to show them when they come in on that visit? Okay, so just giving you an update on that. The other piece that I wanted to make you all aware, the Connecticut State of Education in 2018, I'm sorry, does anybody have questions on Tri-State? I apologize, that was a quick update. I know I keep repeating like our process on some of these committees, but they're important. The next piece on assessment is that the state of Connecticut, in 2018, the last time that they released their next generation accountability report cards was pre-COVID. We are now post-COVID, and then the state of Connecticut is now releasing the next generation accountability system indicators and progress of all districts. So just so you know, I'm going to put this up. I have my tab open here. These are public report cards, which means that anyone can go find them and look at them. And we have not seen a report card since 2018 for any district. And now, because we are moving out of the COVID environment, they are updating their report cards. So this is EdSite. I will put it in the chat as well. My recommendation to Lisa at some point is that we do a full presentation with the board, so everyone is aware of EdSite's report card. There's a lot of information on EdSite. There's a lot of information regarding data, whether it be not non-academic data as well. So for example, this is the main platform of the dashboard. You have individual Connecticut report cards over here. Can you see my cursor at all? No, you can't see me circling on the right side. It says Connecticut report cards. No, that stinks. Connecticut report cards on the right. If you click on that link, it gives you individual report cards by district, and it looks at a variety of different indicators. There's also some new pieces here that the state is requiring. The state is requiring that high schools report FAFSA applications. I don't think that's an issue with us here because our graduation rate is quite high. But the reason why they're looking at the number of students that complete the FAFSA application is because there's a direct correlation between those that complete the FAFSA and those that attend college. And they're looking at college entry and acceptance rates. So if you click on that, you'll see where our district is right now relative to the number of students that have complete the FAFSA application to go to college. They're looking at 12th grade applications. In addition, the Next Generation Accountability System, which includes 12 metrics that districts are evaluated and scored on. It's not just achievement data. It's also attendance data. It's post-secondary entrance rates, it's physical fitness data, it's access to a variety of programs. It's also looking at 6-year cohorts based on graduation rates for special education students or high needs, I should say, but in Weston, our subgroup is special education, and also all student data that are matriculating to post-secondary education. So there's these 12 indicators here. It's quite extensive, and then you can see I'll just pull up Weston. It does include, I actually really value that the state of Connecticut did this, because prior to this Next Generation Accountability System, the only way that districts were measured were based on standardized assessment scores, right? And so the transition turned into not just looking at achievement, but also looking at growth, but also looking at additional data relative to absenteeism, looking at college and career readiness. So districts get credit for AP exams and ECE courses that we offer. We also looked at arts access and physical education. So it was a better model for looking at the whole picture of a district and not just math and ELA scores, right? So this takes a little bit longer than just our small meeting today, but I wanted you to be aware that they are currently updating these indicators now, because these report cards will be released for every district now, which is the first time pre-COVID that they have released it. We are currently, as a district, 84.3 overall. We can talk a little bit more about how that index is calculated as we maybe do a presentation with the full board. But it's important that all parents and everyone in the district is aware that these report cards are now live again. And the accountability index will now be re-evaluated, and districts will be, that's how districts are now scored. Each school, just so you know, that's our district index, but each school also has their own, Megan, are you okay if I pull up the high school? I mean, it's public. Sure. Okay. Each school obviously contributes to the overall index for the district, but each school, congratulations, Megan, you are a Category 1 school of distinction. Each school has
That's why I said it was okay that you pulled it up.
Okay.
I'm just kidding.
Each school, so are you, Patty. Each school, yay, each school has its own next generation accountability index, which also delineates the different components of those 12 indicators. Obviously, every school looks a little different because depending on the grade levels that they service and the assessments that they take, not every indicator is measured on the index. But for example, there's a lot of information around absenteeism and college and career readiness and on track for graduation, physical fitness and arts access. I can tell you that the two indicators across all 4 schools that contribute to that overall index are the chronic absenteeism and the physical fitness. Everybody does that K-12. Like at Hurlbut, you know, they don't take Smarter Balanced in pre-K2, so there's no indicators for progress and achievement and growth for ELA, math, or science. So a lot of it is more heavily weighted in grades 3 on up, but we are one school district, so we all contribute to this overall index. And for example, K2 does support some of that overall achievement in chronic absenteeism and graduation, physical fitness. Okay. Any questions about that? I just wanted to make you aware. I think that, like I said, it's probably a good idea for us to have an open dialogue with the full board at some point, but on a curriculum level, we should be aware that it exists now and it is going to be going live, and the state will be using this as well to update in the following coming school year. This is data from last year that they're using to update the report card. Okay, and teachers need to be aware of it too, because you know, they are contributing to these pieces too. The courses that we offer, the data that they enter for physical fitness, the attendance rates, it all comes from PowerSchool. So being very meticulous about how we enter that data on a daily basis is very important, especially with discipline data and so on and so forth. Okay. Oh, and also, we also get scored on participation rates. The goal is 95%. You can see that, I believe overall, we did get dinged for 2 areas of participation, which is in math, the high needs area, as well as the science high needs area. We fell below the 95 percentage target for the state for participation. So these are things that we're going to be speaking with our principals and our assistant principals and our teachers on now that they are live again, right? We're rekindling some of these things that we may have done prior to COVID, and now they're back at it.
Tina, by participation rate, you mean whether they participate in the assessment, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. Science, ELA, and math assessments in grades 3 on up, as well as I believe the SAT participation as well, right, Megan? I have to look in that again now that you just asked that question. I believe that participation rate is included there as well because it's a state mandated assessment.
Yes.
Okay. Great. So you may have received an email from me yesterday. Did you?
Yes.
Great. I got a blank stare there for a moment, so I got a little nervous. Sorry. I know we're getting
calendar and weather dismissal. And
all right, Chad. Yes, you read it. So the last piece on assessment is that K-5 progress reports will be released next week. Our teachers are working really hard I'm sorry, you're right. It's this week, this Friday. Yeah, thank you. Gosh, I told you the days are just blending. So on Friday, K-5 parents will receive their progress reports from their teachers. You can access them through PowerSchool, right? Patty and Laura, right? You can access them through PowerSchool. I believe, no, you cannot.
We send them home. Right.
Oh, they send them home.
Home.
Okay. I could have sworn we
Digitally.
said we access them in PowerSchool. My
Digitally.
fault.
Yeah.
Digitally.
Originally.
Not digitally.
Yeah. Yes.
Sorry, I lost my voice.
Yeah.
We email them out at the secondary level. They can access grades in PowerSchool, but at K-5 they get emailed.
They get them emailed, so they still get them digitally, kind of. Okay, if they need them printed out, I believe they can request that special request if they need it. Otherwise, it's through email. Great. Okay, and the last piece on the agenda is a special education update. You're all many of you were present. We did have a November a November parent meeting. That meeting was presented by Patty Morrow, our Assistant Director of Special Education. I was going to say Patty Falber, but I knew that was wrong, so my brain froze there for a moment. Sorry. So November, we had our parent meeting focused on the transition to the CT SEDS IEP platform and the new Connecticut dyslexia guidelines. The presentation was recorded and the slideshow are available on the district website if anybody wants to go back and access that. And then the last update is that most special education and pupil personnel service staff members attended a building-based professional development this a few weeks ago. It focused on literacy, math, and instructional strategies. And they had targeted professional development that was provided by the related services area and department. And their mental health teams continue to revise the K-12 counseling curriculum at each building level. We are looking at a revision in our district improvement plan. We are looking at a K-12 revision of our school counseling curriculum. And I've been coaching Meredith Starzik, who's been leading that work. She's been fantastic. We're looking at revising a scope and sequence, and then also revising our units within each grade level so that we can look at what those assured experiences are from kindergarten through high school. So that's a quick update on special education. And that concludes the agenda items. I apologize, that's a little over. Any other questions? Oh,
Before
June.
we sign off, I'm going to jump up to the very first topic and approve the minutes for November. So June, your hands up if you want to go first. Sorry.
Right.
That's what I wanted to remind you.
We're on the same page.
Yeah.
Okay, so can I have a motion to approve the November 2022 curriculum committee minutes?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, and then
You want me to read the language or just second it? We're informal.
you just we could second it, and motion will pass.
I second it.
Chad's had a chance to look at it too. Good. And yeah, this is our last meeting of the year. Next time we see everyone, it'll be 2023. So hope everybody has a good holiday. If there's anything else, we can make a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay, so moved. Motion passes. All right. Happy holidays, everyone. Thank
Happy
you.
holidays. Thank you all.
Yeah, happy holidays.
Tonight,
Bye.
Monday.
Holidays.
Next Monday, we're getting together.
We will. Party.